What's going on, Notre Dame fans? Mike Singer and Tyler Horka from blueandgold.com with a new YouTube video breaking down some of the movement in the world of Notre Dame football's roster. And Tyler and I just did a video a couple days ago talking about all the movement, and here we are. We have 5 new roster changes, or maybe not roster changes, movement, I should say, or lack thereof. We'll get to that in just a minute. Make sure you guys hit the thumbs up on this video. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're not yet. Go to blueandgold.com. Dollar for 1 year of premium access. I think the biggest news to talk about first, Tyler, is Jarrett Patterson, who's been a mainstay on the Notre Dame offensive line for the past couple of years, returning. What were his NFL draft prospects in your opinion, or what was out there on the interwebs, and what did you make of his decision to return?
Yeah, he's another one of those guys that it feels like Notre Dame had a lot of who could have gone on the second day of the draft. So you're talking second, third, fourth, fifth round, somewhere in there, or I guess the second day of the draft these days. I don't even know what the NFL draft looks like these days, but I think Jarrett Patterson would have been a third, maybe fourth round type of guy, which if you're Jarrett Patterson, you've been at Notre Dame for 4 years now, and you're saying, okay, maybe I can't raise my stock any higher than that. But I think what we're seeing with Notre Dame and all these guys coming back is, okay, if I have the same type of year that I just had, I'm probably going to be in the same standing with the NFL draft in 2023. So I might as well come back, be a part of Marcus Freeman's first full year as the head coach at Notre Dame, see if we can do one better than we did. Obviously, from a Notre Dame's perspective, one better than we did last year, and that was 11-1, number 5 in the college football playoff, and literally right on the cusp of making it into the playoff and potentially being able to play for a national championship. I think Jarrett Patterson is a guy that really believes that this Notre Dame team is right on the edge of making it there. He's been a part of college football playoff teams before. He obviously wants to be a part of another one, and him coming back, I think it absolutely gives Notre Dame a chance to be really good offensively again, because you basically know the 5 starters that you're going to have on the offensive line. If you're Notre Dame, you have Joe Alt and Blake Fisher as your tackles. Andrew Kristofic did nothing to rid himself of that left guard spot. And then you might as well move Josh Lugg right over to right guard, and Patterson fits firmly in the middle. So you've got a really solid group of 5 guys on the offensive line. Harry Heastan looks like he's coming back. That's all but official right now. So really good prospects if you're Notre Dame, if you're looking at that offensive line.
All right, let's move into. Notre Dame's got so many Ohio State ties on its roster right now with the coaching staff, but then a player who was an Ohio State graduate and then transferred to Notre Dame for the 2020 season was Isaiah Pryor. So he came in as a graduate transfer with 2 years of eligibility, but then could have taken an extra year with COVID to play for this upcoming season, but decided to enter the NFL draft. Pryor wasn't even a full-time starter for Notre Dame, more of a package guy as a rover in passing downs, I want to say, Tyler. So seems like his NFL upside is more of as a special teams contributor. And going back to what you said about some guys returning because, well, my stock might not get any higher. Seems like he was kind of in the thought of, well, I'm not going to get a ton of playing time. I think my opportunities here are kind of capped. Might as well go to the NFL.
Yeah, and it just makes it interesting, though, because if that was his ceiling at Notre Dame, never started a game, mainly got in on special teams, and like you said, was a package guy, then it's interesting to see what he thinks his next level capabilities are. But that said, I think Isaiah Pryor actually had a pretty underrated season for Notre Dame in 2021, just in terms of he was a guy that could give you 20, 30 snaps a game at Rover, even a few other linebacker positions as well. He was pretty versatile, and you'd expect that to be the case given that he came here as a safety and made a position swap to linebacker as is. So he was a guy that you saw him a lot in the Fiesta Bowl. I think he actually played the most snaps in any game that he's played all year in the Fiesta Bowl, somewhere around the 30 snap range. So is Notre Dame going to miss him a little bit because it's a depth piece, and he was really good in that area, and he was, like I said, was awesome on special teams as well. But I think Notre Dame has some guys that can easily fill the void that's left by Pryor, because if you're talking voids left, then Myron Tagovailoa, Mosa, Kevin Austin Jr., those are the guys you're like, man, we're really going to miss him. Isaiah Pryor, not so much, but he had a pretty good season.
Yeah, guys like Jalen Sneed, Prince Colley, younger guys who right away, you think could play and kind of add to that rover spots. In really interesting one, Kahanu Kia, when I covered him as a recruit in the class of 2021, his plan has always been to take a Latter-day Saints mission trip, 2 years to go. Doesn't affect his eligibility. Pretty sure he comes off the scholarship chart for Notre Dame as well, doesn't count against them while he's gone. So he played his freshman year at Notre Dame and has now announced on Twitter today that he will be taking his mission. So tell us your thoughts there. What kind of role did he play for the team this season?
Another really big special teams guy. He appeared on over 120 special team snaps across pretty much everything: kickoff, kick return, punt return. So he was a staple on special teams. Notre Dame's definitely going to miss him there. It's kind of the way Notre Dame grooms a lot of these guys. Start him off on special teams. Keanu Kia only got 11 defensive snaps all year, which is pretty impressive because I think he logged 4 tackles against Navy. So they threw him in at the end of that game, and he was all over the place. I think he's going to be a really good player. It's interesting to see what 2 years off does for anybody. It's interesting to see. I don't know how the logistics work. I think Notre Dame could obviously add him back, but they might be in a position to, who knows where the depth chart is at that point on the defensive line and at the linebacker position. Maybe they have enough guys and Keanu Kia ends up going somewhere else to play ball. We'll just have to see. But I think had he not taken this mission trip, which is obviously very important to him, and kudos for him for doing this. It's awesome. Had he not taken it, I think he was in line to maybe become a guy who could start 2 years from now, maybe as a junior or a senior.
Like Tyler said there, he's going to take his 2-year mission, and when he comes back, which it's in Raleigh, by the way, North Carolina, he can go anywhere. He's basically like a recruit again. So a lot of times when kids take their LDS mission trip, you'll see them end up at a BYU or a Utah. Obviously Utah being a very strong Mormon state, and Kahanu's father played. Nate Kia played he was a defensive lineman for the Utah Utes in the '90s. So kind of interesting thing there. But right now, all indications are that he will return to Notre Dame, but in 2 years, who the heck knows? Maybe Tyler Horka is the head coach at Notre Dame in 2 years. Who knows? But so interesting nugget there. I mean, he's going to come back as what, a 21-year-old, 22-year-old sophomore? I mean,
Right.
so that's a pretty neat thing there. Avery Davis coming back for a 6th season. So I've called him an NFL guy. We will see. I certainly didn't anticipate the injury that he suffered, so that set him back. But hey, good for Notre Dame that he's going to come back for another season. So he tore his ACL in early November, I'll say, the Navy game. So any idea on his timetable, Tyler, and then what does his return mean for this football team?
Yeah, I mean, immediately when he made his announcement, I went back and I looked and I said, what's the typical timeline for an athlete, especially a football player recovering from an ACL tear? He's obviously not going to be ready for any spring practices. He's going to be off on the sideline doing his own thing. My guess is he wouldn't even be ready for fall camp as a full participant. That'll be right around the time where he's maybe able to start ramping up and doing some more football-related things. But my guess is Notre Dame taking him back, saying, yeah, come on. They think that he's probably going to be available pretty early on in the season, but it's just going to be interesting to see if he's able to come back into the full swing of things after missing an entire offseason. I mean, even for guys like him, who's going to be a 6th-year senior, those spring reps, those summer workouts, and those fall reps are incredibly important just to get in the flow and get chemistry going, especially with the new quarterback and all of those things. So I think he'll play early next season. It'll be interesting to see what he can give Notre Dame coming off that ACL injury.
Notre Dame fans, Blue and Gold has a new home. We've left rivals, and we are at the On3 Sports Network. Signed up for just $1 for the first year premium access. And we'll also throw in a free Founders Club hat that will not ship until the summer when we have inventory. But just make sure when you sign up, your email is correct. That's how we'll inform you guys about the hat. If you do sign up, drop a comment on YouTube, tweet at me at Mike T. Singer or Tyler at TB Horka. Let us know some really unique stuff going on at Blue and Gold at the On3 Sports Network, the next gen network for college sports coverage. All right, last guy, Myron Tongavloa Amosa. This is something that he had kind of told reporters a couple months ago, Tyler, that he was going to be taking his talents to the NFL. So, I mean, when was that in your reaction to Myron, the big end position he played so well? I mean, and who could be next?
I believe it was just before the bowl or maybe early in bowl practices. So it's been about a month. Not a really big surprise, obviously, but a guy who started 12 games at the strong end position. He had tons of quarterback pressures. He was a guy that Notre Dame relied on to get to the quarterback and kind of set the edge in terms of a pass rush standpoint. So I think a name that is really interesting here is I know Brian Kelly is not at Notre Dame anymore, but he kind of made a shift with Riley Mills, moving him from the interior to the edge. I think it was the Virginia game that Riley Mills came out and had a really good performance. There's one of those games where Mills had a couple sacks. So he's a guy that has the size, obviously, to play strong side defensive end. With Jason Adamalola coming back, I'm not sure if the reps are there for him on the interior. I know Notre Dame has to replace Kurt Heinisch, and maybe Riley Mills kind of swoops in there, but I see Howard Cross as being that guy. So if you want to get Riley Mills on the field, I think he looks like a defensive end in my estimation. He's fast, he's physical, he's strong up front. See what he can do on the edge. Isaiah Foskey and Riley Mills rushing the quarterback, that's pretty menacing if you're playing Notre Dame next season.
All right, that's our Notre Dame football roster update. Make sure you're checking back into our YouTube page for more updates on Notre Dame football, especially new coaching hires. Potentially, we'll have a Mike Goolsby show on Tuesday, January 11th to talk about a lot. Mr. Goolsby's got a lot to talk about and plenty of recruiting updates on our website, blueandgold.com. So we got you covered again, $1 for 1 year premium access. The link is blueandgold.com. Appreciate you guys watching. Hit that thumbs up, and we will catch you next time.